I work with a lot of folks or see a lot of folks talk about these issues where all of a sudden they've migrated from some other e-commerce platform like WooCommerce, BigCommerce, and have moved over to Shopify. They're super happy about moving to Shopify, but then several weeks later they're considering moving back because their SEO is all of a sudden taking a nosedive. After I ask a little bit more about that, people automatically assume that because they've made this transition, that Shopify is likely the one to blame here, right? Like we were doing great, all of a sudden things start to tank. Well, it must be Shopify's fault. That's not actually super accurate in how that works. The problem typically comes from issues with 404 errors that result from a changed URL pattern. So, before where someone might have come from WooCommerce or BigCommerce or something like that, you might have had a little bit more customization over what your URL structure looked like. People think that it's a bad thing sometimes that Shopify has a very defined URL structure. That's not necessarily the case. I think that you can get a whole bunch of debates on either side of this. The positive in this instance, though, is that we can change a ton of these to correspond to the previous URL structure without seeing too much of an issue or a hit here. So we can change that via the admin under what are called 301 redirects. So before, where maybe your website, your structure was more like, your domain name.com slash then whatever the product handle was, or whatever the page handle was, or something like that. Now that we're moving to Shopify, if it's a product, it's slash product slash whatever the product handle is. Same thing for collections and pages. They all have that directly documented within the URL structure. There's a lot of reasons for this, but Shopify is optimized for SEO in a lot of different ways. And while some people don't like that they don't have this additional customization to deal with, I think personally this is a good thing, and it'll also make it even easier as people move here to make sure we can handle all these redirects properly as well. Because that part, that strategy's already been handled for you. Now we need to just update so that way when people go from maybe some old link documentation or pages that have been previously indexed, when Google tries to go and crawl those pages again, instead of getting a 404, what we need to do is implement 301 redirects to say, this is permanently moved from this location to now this new location. And so that way the SEO will follow with that page rather than seeing that tank when it hits a 404. So we're going to go over today how to fix this. So this is going to improve your customer experience because we're not going to be seeing all those 404s, and this is going to obviously improve as well, your standing with Google. When we fix those 404 errors, you're probably getting in Google Search Console. We'll do that both in the admin, if we have just a handful of SKUs, products, redirects, or whatever to handle. And then we'll also go over how to do that via CSV imports and exports as well, just because when you're dealing with a lot of them, that's really going to be a lot easier on you. So hopefully this is really helpful. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and start off in the admin in Shopify here. I'm using my own portfolio website basically as an example here. So I'm on Shopify, made that move after having a Next.js website that worked really, really well for a long time, but I needed just a little bit more control as far as like ease of use when it comes to like updating blog posts and things like that, instead of just running everything in Markdown files, how I was doing it. And so this tended to be a little bit better. So when you get into your admin and go down to online store, and then you're going to want to select navigation. Okay. Important information about the navigation you're using for your website and stuff in here. Also, if you haven't done updated your filters and stuff yet, this is where we used to see this down here. You'll want to go ahead and get the Shopify Search and Discovery app, because that's making things a little bit more accessible when it comes to providing some more options there. That's pretty new. Actually, the very first run that I did of this video wasn't even hadn't even downloaded it yet. It was just newly available. So now that I actually have that, and it might be a separate video. So up in the top right, when you go to navigation, you're going to see view URL redirects. So in this instance here, this is from the very first time I did this. This is just like an example to show you. So, these are redirecting from, the old handle where it was like maybe before it was our domain name slash cool dash product. And now we're wanting it to redirect to, domain name slash products slash cool dash product. Similar to the example here, I used to have a different URL structure for my posts. I'll scroll down a little bit here. So in my previous blog that I had set up, I had done this with just a slash posts slash and then the actual handle for the article itself, versus on Shopify they have slash blogs and then what kind of block it is, in this case slash posts, and then slash then the actual handle that we're going to use for that. So this just lets basically when someone hits that old URL link, if it's linked up on a different site or something like that, for example, when they hit this old one, it knows, hey, instead of serving this page up, which is going to be a 404, let's go ahead and redirect this traffic. And then we're going to also shoot a message back to say, this is a 301, this is permanently moved, so we're all good here. So let's do that real fast. In order to create a new URL redirect, we're going to go to the top right, that nice big green button. And you'll see here, this kind of gives you information about original URL, stuff like that. Yep. That's what we want. And so let's say, slash another cool product. Okay. And then we want it redirected to its products slash another cool product. Or if you've updated the handle and stuff like that, once you've moved to Shopify, obviously you'd want to make sure that that is taken care of as well. And this is another good option to make sure you're aware of this as well. There's information in here if you just want to go back to the store's homepage. Maybe this is a landing page or something that you just don't support anymore. You want it redirected back to the homepage. All you have to do is just put the slash in here. So it will look like this. But in this instance, obviously, we don't want to do that. We would prefer for a product to get updated to the new product because that's probably what the user wants. Go ahead and save that redirect. It says it was created. From here, we can obviously create another, but let's just go ahead and go over to view, and you can see here that it's showing up. So that part's real simple. But the instance where we have maybe hundreds or thousands of URL redirects, so large SKU stores, this is super common, or people that have a ton of blog content and stuff like that that might have moved from one place to the other. Really common for us to have to do a bunch of these. I'd really recommend looking at the exporting via a CSV option and then re-importing that once we've had a chance to update it. And we'll go over that here next. Okay, so we saw how to create some URL redirects directly within the admin in Shopify under navigation. Now, that's real simple to do if you just have one, two, maybe even up to like 20, I guess, if you want to spend the time doing that. But what if you have just, hundreds or something like that, or even thousands? You really want to probably manage that via just a spreadsheet. That's way easier than sitting there waiting to hit save and all this fun stuff. So up at the top right corner again, you can see that we have an option to export. So we'll go ahead and try that. Now you can obviously just do the current page. I like to usually work with all of my redirects at the same time. Just really depends on your situation. And then if you're not going to be messing around with this in a plain CSV file format, I'd go ahead and take a look at this for Excel, numbers, or other spreadsheet programs. I typically use Google Sheets. This works really well in Google Sheets. No problems there. So go ahead and export. It will send you an email to that. So whatever the email is associated with your login here, it's going to send that your way. Now, I've already done this a couple of times, so I'm going to just go over to here. This originally gives you the CSV file here, and hopefully you can see this okay, but I think that's kind of hard to see. Let's blow that up a little. And so this originally gives you in CSV. What you can do is you can choose to right-click it and then open with. From there, you can obviously just open it in something like Numbers, but like I said, tend to prefer Google Sheets. It'll make a copy of that document and just open it up directly in here, which is the document I have over here. So you can see we've got our redirect from, and then all the old handles that we have, and then a redirect to. So these are all the Shopify approved ones. So this looks pretty simple, right? Now, where it gets really complicated, obviously, is when we're talking about moving around lots of data. This makes it really easy if your previous URL structure was relatively defined and we have access to those URLs. You're going to have that through various means. So however you had that in the past would be how you would want to go about that. You can get this possibly from like a WooCommerce export or something along those lines to get your old product handles and stuff like that. So you might have to do products and then do an export from there. Same thing with like pages and different things. It really just depends on what system you're coming from. What I did here, and what I like to do when I'm creating these, is just go ahead and create another sheet here. And here I'm just going to call this dummy data just for now. And then I have just some test data basically from Shopify. They give this nice little bit whenever we have to like run a store and run a couple of things to test out real quick. This is just some simple dummy data that you can import into a store. So I usually use this just for some quick testing. In this instance, I'm just going to go ahead and grab, we need the handle and the title. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste all that over. And so you can see here in this instance where we're going to be working with, 23 different products in this instance. Well, really only 24, right? Because we've got the varsity top here for simplicity. Let's go ahead and just get rid of these guys. Excuse me. So we'll do that for simplicity's sake here. Now, in this instance, we actually don't need the title. I usually keep the title elsewhere if we need to like handleize it, so to speak, so turn this into a product handle. But for now, like we're not going to worry about this too much. So I'm actually going to get rid of this info. Now, in this instance, what we want to do is we want to create new product handles. So let's say our old domain used to just be, domain name .com/ocean dash like type blue dash shirt. And so now what we want to do is we want to change this instead. The new structure should look like domain name.com/products/ocean dash blue dash shirt. So there's obviously, we could go through like update these individually, but really you should only have to do this a couple of times, and we're going to use basically the power of, Google Sheets or Excel or whatever here to run some simple functions in here to just add stuff together for us here in these redirects. So again, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this stuff. And so in this instance, we do need to, for the sake of having this in, have it start off with a slash, so maybe we only have access to the handle at least initially. What we can do then instead, if you do equals and then concat, that concatenation means just basically to like put two items together like this. So we're going to select that. You have two values that you're going to add together in this instance. If you want just a plain text value, we're going to put them in between quotation marks. So we want a slash, put a comma, and then you can either click on this, or we could have typed in A2 and that would have worked as well. And then once we tab over, boom, now we have, this is our original redirect from URL handle. Now, we don't want to have to type this out for every single one. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this, and when we copy this, it copies the specific function. And these programs are smart enough to know when we're copying and pasting this, boom, we don't want A2 for every single one. So it updates row by row. This one's A3, this one wants A4, this one wants A5, and so on. So whether you're doing only 20 of these or you're doing 1,000, this will work the same for you. And so that's why this is a really quick way to update product handles, save you a ton of time when it comes to doing this. Now we have to add products before, so that way we can redirect these properly, right? And we can do that with the very simple concatenate function again. So really simply, we're going to do concat, and then we're going to put it a plain text value in between quotations. And now this time let's try to, let's go ahead and just, now I didn't put the slash at the end. Obviously if we were doing the trailing slash, I should have done that in front of products. So slash products slash. So I'm just going to go ahead and do slash products without a trailing slash. And then let's go ahead and do B2 and tab over. And you can see now that's our new redirect to handle. And we're going to do the exact same thing over here. We're going to just paste these over. Now, this is great, right? So we have all these additional handles and stuff that we have updated, but we need to now move them from this page. And I like doing this on this page because it's a lot cleaner, especially when you're working with a lot of data. It's just a lot easier. So using simple things like if you have to highlight multiple cells at the same time, if you hold down Command or Control, I believe it is on PC, you can highlight multiple, or even more simply, if you click at the top and then go all the way to the bottom, hold down Shift, it'll highlight everything from that top one that you did all the way down to the bottom. So whether that's from the middle, whatever, it's just going to highlight those ones in between. Again, these are just little tips and tricks for whenever it's a really big set of data. I don't want to make this a whole thing about Excel, but this is just really helpful for me whenever I've gone through and I've worked with a lot of these. So we're going to go ahead and grab all of this. So I just copied that. That's Command C. You could right click as well to copy, or Control V on a PC. We'll go over to our actual one here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to intentionally mess up here. So if we just paste directly into here, we're going to get a reference error. Basically, it's because whenever we just copied and then pasted over, it is trying to specifically look for some sort of cell on that other sheet. And so it's like really confused that we don't have that information available. So what you should do, Mac or PC, if you do Command Shift V or Control Shift V, it will just paste over the plain text value, which is what we want. We don't want to copy over the actual function itself. We want to copy or paste over, we want to paste over the just plain text value. And so that's the best way to do that. And we're going to go back over and we're going to do the exact same thing in here. We're going to grab all these and we're going to drop these over here. Plain text value. Okay. So now you can see that we've got, oops, sorry, I'm getting a little scroll happy here. Now we've got all of these new product handles that we can update and have properly redirecting from one place to the other. So from here, what we need to make sure that we do is we need to file. We're going to go ahead and download, but make sure that is in a CSV again. Like we can't basically like re-import it as a Excel file or Google Sheets file. It has to be the CSV. Okay. Once we've got this CSV, we'll go ahead and move over to our redirects. Let's go ahead and refresh this guy here. And then we will import. And then just go ahead, drag and drop your redirect file. This replace file is kind of confusing. It's just if you want to replace the file that's actually chosen here. And then go ahead and upload. And it will tell you specifically that you've got 49 redirects in here, and here's a preview of what that looks like. And so that's just something you can check to see, make sure, yeah, this is looking about right. And then we'll go back over as well to our redirects file and see we have 49. This is 50 because we have that first row as a title, so redirect 2. So this is actually only 49. So that looks great. Let's go ahead and import. It says it could take some time to complete. If you'd like, you can close. Okay. So we're all good. So you can see there we just did 20. We only added 20. And it did update some additional ones just to make sure that those were proper and all that fun stuff. Okay. So there you have it. We've got all of these updated, and this looks like, you can see even though those were at the bottom of the spreadsheet, that loaded at the top because at the moment the sort is kind of favoring the newer ones added. And so that's where these are all coming from here. And there you go. You've now got a way to fix all of those 404 errors you're getting from customer complaints or maybe Google Search Console complaining at you and watching your SEO take a nosedive. Now that we can fix those, go ahead, implement those 301 redirects in a way that makes the most sense for you, either directly in the admin or using the CSV file export and imports. And then make sure you resolve those errors and issues too in the Google Search Console as they come up. So that will help your SEO. It'll help fix all of those 404 errors that you're having because those 301 redirects will be properly implemented. And to make things a little bit easier, because I didn't want to make this a whole video about like Google Sheets or Excel or whatever, I am going to include a link to a code snippet down in the comments here as well, just so that way you can get information on those helpful functions in Excel, whether it's concatenating or if you possibly just have the old title name but you want to handleize that or create a handle out of that. This would be a way that you could remove special characters or remove the the spaces with dashes and stuff like that. So that's done through a fun little deal called regex. And so You don't have to be a developer necessarily to like get too deep into the weeds on that, but knowing a couple of these handy functions and stuff will really help you when it comes to updating all that information within the redirects on the CSV imports and exports. So I hope this was helpful. Hopefully now you have a way moving forward to fix all of those terrible SEO errors in Google Search Console, and we can make sure that customers don't see those dreaded 404 pages as well. Thanks so much.